right, welcome back to another episode of Unlocking Growth, and I'm your host, Brian Stone. This is the show where we dig into the mindset and the strategies that coaches use in real everyday practice. And we talk from all different industries, all different methodologies, life coaches, business coaches, sales coaches. I'm really excited about our guest today because he is a man of my own heart. He comes from the sales business just like me, and he has over 30 years of experience and has individually helped thousands of salespeople get success through tried and true methods and through having the right mindset. So Chris is coming in from the Detroit, Michigan area, and he is the owner of Intensity Method. And so I know that you guys are going to love this conversation. I know we're going to have a lot to chat about because anytime I'm talking sales, I'm happy. So let's just jump right into it, man. Chris, how are you today?
Oh, amazing. Thank you. I'm so grateful, Brian. Thanks for having me on. Love to talk sales, love to talk life coaching, love to talk business. So you and I are lockstep, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that this is an unscripted show, so we could go anywhere with it. But let's just start with a little bit of background. I know who you are, but for our listeners' benefit, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into business coaching, and why you're so passionate about what you do.
Oh, yeah. So I started as a coach fresh out of high school, coaching middle school girls basketball. So right off the rip, I knew I'd love to coach, and I've been doing it ever since in all sorts of different facets of my life, from sports. Then when I got into business, into sales, I advanced in my sales career, got into sales leadership and coaching, frankly. And then back in COVID, I took on kind of a life coaching side of business too, to really connect with individuals who were kind of, bumping up against limited beliefs and those type of things. And then all three of those things have combined into Intensity Method. So, it's been a lot of fun. I just love, the thing about coaching, it really is this combination of, accountability and inspiration equals coaching. And that part, I just get juiced up about. It's not about, like having all the answers. It's about going on somebody's journey with them and just talking about how they improve and how they make a maximum impact.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, because it is about the impact. And I think the misconceptions that a lot of business owners and salespeople in particular have is that they need to be coached by somebody that's better than them at whatever it is that they do. And that's just not the case, right? I mean, if you look at professional athletes, if you look at professional CEOs, whether it's business, sports, whatever, they're the best at what they do. And yet they still hire a coach to hold them accountable to make sure that they're getting those incremental increases that can make a huge impact, right?
Amen. It's funny that in football, I coached football for a decade, high school football, and I coached the offensive and defensive line with no concept of ever playing the position, of ever being in that, but I learned it over the years. And then, the coaching side of that was just exhilarating to see the guys that kind of were the shadow warriors, right? The ones that didn't get a lot of credit or get the touchdowns or get their names called very often. And that was one of the most satisfying coaching experiences I had done because, you got to get those guys to fire up, to do the little dirty work, to do the stuff that nobody really cares about. And, that's life and that's business. We have to do a bunch of work that's not ever going to get, a bunch of attention or, at least in sales, we might have a good sales year and get a pat on the back. But in that position in particular, it was one of those things that really taught me how to refine my sales skills because that's what it's all about. It's about showing up. It's about grit. It's about, doing the little things and figuring things out. And so that really helped me define how I coach to people now.
Well, and I love that you brought up, and you use sports, right? Yeah. You're not your superstars, right? Not your QB and I've always heard it with a kitchen analogy, right? Yeah. So it's your kitchen versus your front end wait staff, right? I mean, and so and that's a good example too. If you've ever been to a restaurant where the service is incredible and the food is awful, are you going to go back? Yeah. I mean, the answer is just simply no. Now, if the opposite is true and the food is really excellent, sometimes you'll put up with poor service. Sometimes. right? If it's good enough. And I think that's true in business too. You know, your kitchen, so to speak, those are your administrative assistants, you know, your back end people that are, you know, as you said, the shadow warriors, right? They're the people that are turning all the dials, making all the cogs, fit, and really they're the backbone of every industry. And I think they get neglected a lot. And I think some top salespeople that are used to, let's be honest, being in the spotlight, they turn CEO or business owner, and they neglect to realize how important that coaching is for everybody at every level of an organization.
And I do a lot of young seller coaching at this point, and you just nailed it, and there's a perception that, you get to go drink the small glass of bourbon and a cigar. And that's where the reality of it is. And I've always had such respect for the people who take the phone call, the people, like you say, are in back, cooking the food. I just connect with those people. I came from there, and those are the people I tend to really find myself, having the most impact with, from a coaching perspective, because, number one, with enthusiasm and a whole lot of grit, you're going to go through this progression in your career. And now as I start to elevate into that other aspect of my career, I just love to reconnect with the people who I know are on the everyday getting it done. It's just exciting. And I got a small standing applause the other day for doing a sales meeting where I just talked about a subject that was not what the presentation was about, but we got into what they were experiencing and what the group was feeling. And man, I was juiced up. I did push-ups during the presentation. It was awesome. So.
That's awesome, man. I don't think I've ever done push-ups during a presentation, but I did have to do some. That was the first, yeah. I did have to do burpees one time on Facebook Live when my real estate coach was holding me accountable to not hitting the targets I said I would hit, and he made me do 15 burpees, which is not a lot for a lot of people, but for me it was gruesome.
I'll bet. So
yeah. So let's get into tactics if you're okay. I'd love to jump in and talk about some challenges that you've seen for the clients that you serve in the business space. I mean, what resonates the most? What's the biggest obstacle that you find your clients face most often, and what are your strategies to get them past that?
Yeah, there's the word is really just your self-limiting beliefs, right? And we all have them. I have them. I still have a business coach. Right. So that, and I think with the fact that, especially what I'm seeing in the young sellers and the young employees today, is they've just always had this access to technology, and they had answers at their fingertips, but they have a narrative in their mind that this is how it goes, or this is how they've seen it go. And sometimes that's fed to you, and that's not real. And to have those conversations about, kind of how real life works in business and even in sports, this was the same kind of concept, has been one of the more rewarding things to overcome, and to see, oh man, when you see the growth, and when they say, hey, I just thought it went this way, but guess what? That was just in my head. And now I see how I can be more impactful by addressing that. And sometimes you overcome it and you jump over that hurdle. Sometimes you go around it. It all depends. Each individual has their own way of doing that. But that's probably what I've recognized the most, is that we're getting this narrative in from mass media, not picking on them at all. It's good for sales, but that there's this way that life is supposed to go. And for each of us, it's an individual, canoe ride down the river. So you got to learn how to navigate it.
Yeah. I mean, so there, some things are different, right? Every client experience is different, but then there's some commonalities there, right? We all have hurdles, and the hurdles are different, but usually the strategies to get over those hurdles can be the same, right? So how do you get people out of their own way when they're, as you said, they're going down the river, they got rapids ahead, and they're too worried about tipping over?
Brian, it's different for each individual. It's a shorter hurdle for some and longer for others. What it would be is just, and you mentioned it with your coach, it's when you set goals and you're accountable to those goals, and your coach holds you accountable for those goals, and the persistence and the 2 millimeter shift, right? A pretty popular thing in the coaching business is just not taking that huge shift, but making a small change, small steps, small improvements. that's what I love about coaching, because for everybody, it looks a little different. And you're going to have one aspect of your life where you break through quickly, and another that might take years on years, to the point I had a breakthrough just this year from a traumatic event in my childhood. And that took years of unpacking and getting there. So, for me, I'm a high energy guy. I love to get after it and do that stuff, but I also have a tremendous amount of patience in listening and finding maybe we can uncover something a little deeper and overcome that. And then once you have that breakthrough, now that's life changing.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about accountability, right?
Yeah.
Because I know that's something that we've talked about consistently, and and it's kind of a bad word for some people that aren't really used to it, right? So, what do you view is accountability, and how do you implement that as a coach for the clients that you serve, in a way that actually makes it easy to receive and easy to hold? To hold to. I mean, let's be honest. It's tough.
Yeah, great question, Brian. So first of all, I make them set their own goals, and I make those be SMART goals, right? So we're going to make sure they're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and we have a timetable, right? And that's where you start. Now, I think any experienced coach is going to tell you that, 9 times out of 10, the 1 or 2 or 3 SMART goals you pick right off the bat aren't really truly the goals that you're going to end up going after. And that from there, we reset the goals, and we reset, we move the finish line down a little bit because we got a new goal. And that's probably the best way to do it. Organically, in most cases, I think most clients, customers will all of a sudden, as they start to unpack some of the things that have been limiting for themselves, they'll see how that goal shifts and takes form. And that's another fun thing to experience when you see that they just kind of have this self-realization that, yeah, maybe I thought it was this, but guess what? It's a little different than that. It comes from a different place. And then you hold them accountable to that goal and see how fast they accelerate towards it. It's pretty, of course I'm on here talking about coaching, but I couldn't, it's been impactful in my life as a receiver of coaching. And now I'm just trying to, pay that back by being someone who's giving that to our clients.
Well, and I want to commend you too. I mean, you hit on a really good topic there. Coaches are willing to be coached and often have coaches themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Just like authors read, right? I mean, it's the same concept, right? I mean, if you were passionate about something, then why wouldn't you also employ that in your own personal life, right?
Absolutely.
It cracks me up. I've seen these coaches that don't have coaches. I've run across them, and that's always my first question. Like, I'm like, oh, you're a business coach, and we chat, and we're like, well, so who's your coach? And they say, oh, I don't have a coach. Immediately, I've lost a lot of respect, and I start to question the credibility of them, right out of the gate.
Absolutely.
So, how long have you had coaching yourself, and how has it transformed your coaching business, your sales business?
So, great question. I really, I've had mentors before coaches. I invested in a coach during COVID because and Tony's great, Tony Robbins, and I watched his. I'm not a guru video. We had a lot of time during COVID, so we watched a lot of videos.
Everybody did.
At that moment in time, I said, hey, there's something there. And that's kind of what I was doing individually with my sales team, with football. I was doing that on a smaller aspect, but that's when I really got into the intentional coaching. I've had a coach ever since then with a couple of small gaps. And I'll tell you what, Brian, I've hired coaches that we immediately recognize we don't align, right? I wasn't, their skill set wasn't aligned with my skill set or vice versa. And so it's a little bit of a trial and error at some times. I just most recently hired a business coach, and it's actually a group of coaches. Awesome. And every day, and especially I think what I see with most of our clients, we find a place where we either, and I don't want to use the word stuck in this case. How about we stall? And we need a little inspiration to keep moving us forward, right? And so what a business coach does for you is always be there to inspire you or allow you. And I would also say this, your coaching doesn't have to come all the time from a human. I consume podcasts, I consume books. I find a bunch of different ways to get coaching, but that human, that human touch, that conversation always has been the most effective for me.
Well, and sometimes it's a peer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't want, and I know I got on my soapbox there. I don't want anybody that's listening to misconstrue that and say, hey, if you don't hire a coach, you're irrelevant. No, I'm not trying to say anything like that. But you're exactly right. I mean, it's the concept of diet and exercise, right? But your mental diet and exercise, right? Because what you're absorbing, whether it's a peer that's in the same business space as you. I mean, that some of my best breakthroughs in business have been with my competitors, right? The other business owner that is right there, step by step, either a little above or a little behind me. So I mean, it doesn't have to be in a professional coaching situation, but you gotta surround yourself with people that are willing to ask challenging questions.
Yeah,
right?
amen. And it's I appreciate you mentioned diet and exercise, because that's another. I just recently hit a weight goal, and I did that by tracking. I added accountability to it. And that's what you see when you go into coaching, is that accountability side, the measurable side. And all you need is that to always say, I'm moving towards that goal. And so it's just so much. It has been one of the most rewarding things I do. And I'm just so excited to think about, all the different aspects. I have some, personal goals that I write down and sticky notes all around my office about, where those go. And I recognize I need coaches for all of those things. And it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, so let's jump into the diet then, right? And specifically, I want to talk about, and I may not be going where you think I'm going, Chris, but I want to talk about your mental diet, right? Yeah. Because leaders are readers, right? Every coach that I talk to, regardless of their industry, always absorbs methodologies and thought processes from books or keynote speakers or podcasts. So what do you find feeds you? And feeds your mindset?
I am, I used to be the book a month club Audible, because I spend a lot as a salesperson. I spend a lot of time in the car. So that was my original meal. I've now moved to more bite-sized meals, which are podcasts. Because the thing I really enjoy about podcast is you can, if your car rides 15 minutes, you can find a 15-minute podcast, and you can consume them in the amounts that you want to consume. And what I've really realized are the experts are on podcasts, right? They're there. If you're looking for expert advice, they are available to you for no cost if you want to go and get that, which is a huge part of your diet. I still read. I just bought a book. I just bought 2 books. I still like to read. I like to use those, when I do have some downtime and I don't always want noise around me. I find my most consumable time of information is when I'm doing yard work, when I'm walking the dogs, whatever that is. When I combine that physical with the mental, I really find that to be the most effective time that things sink in. But I find any way and every way. I do videos. I'm in my 50s now, version 5.3. So videos came a little later to me, and I find that I also have a very short attention span. So I got to take it in small bites. But videos are great too. And YouTube's such a great resource as well.
I love that version 5.3. I'm totally going to steal that. By the way, that's I don't know if that's your own thing or you got it somewhere, but that's hilarious.
All good content, is stolen. I stole that one. So.
Hey, I like to think everything is jazz. I'm a musician myself, right? So it's like, jazz is creation, but it's creation from creation, right? You're pulling some of the best stuff from everywhere else, right? So I love it. So what's your top of the list as far as books, right? Let's focus on that. Like what's the one that you've been most excited about that you've read in the past, 12 months or that you got on your list this year?
You know what? It took me a while to get to this book, but Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And that's not a new book.
Oh, absolutely.
I just didn't get to it.
Fantastic book.
I got to it through the video, by the way, through YouTube. I saw the speech, and then I got to the book. And in sales, and funny that this has come up a lot with young sellers here recently. Everybody's worried about the what and the features and the benefits and the gadget, and it's shiny and all of those things. But what problem are you solving, right? What problem are you going to solve with this when you're in any sales environment? It doesn't matter if you're doing real estate or in my business, in automotive or whatever. What problem are you solving? And so that Start With Why really helped me shape kind of my ideology when I'm where I'm at today. And I think most the people in sales start with the what, and they spend a lot of time on the what. And with all that, what can get you some numbers, but it's not going to get you the real sustainable numbers. So that's been a recent one. The new Sales Guy project I just picked up last week. That's a gentleman who's in my space, the industrial world. I'm starting to read that. That's got some real nice value. My favorite book, and some people aren't thrilled, but the 48 Laws of Power. I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't read it word for word. Some of the principles there, though some people think it's a little dark, I look at it differently. I take a different vision of it. I just think it talks about human psychology and unpacking the human mind a little bit and how it's motivated. And then how do you take that and use it for your good, right? Use it for the good of your clients and for your customers and for your family, right? And for yourself. So those are some of the three that I covered off.
I mean, I would tell you. So I've personally read two of the three there, and yeah. So Start with Why is fantastic. Love Simon Sinek.
He's awesome.
Love Simon Sinek. And I think most people find that from his TED Talk back when TED Talk was like new, right?
Yeah, right. It was,
so it's not a new concept. And for those of you, that really want to dig into Simon Sinek, there's any of his books are great, but he has one that's called Find Your Why, and it's more of a workbook. And so it's actually the secondary book to Start with Why. I want to talk about that too, because I think you hit that perfectly in application. I mean, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Yeah. Right. And, part of my coaching background is with brand new real estate agents. Mm-hmm. I mean, like brand new salespeople, and the listing presentation is always like the scariest thing for them, right? Because they're walking up, and it's like whether it's $100,000 house or a $1 million house, they're nervous. They think the marketing and the contract and all this, they think that all of that is the stuff that matters. Let's be honest. I mean, let's be really honest. I'm going to pick on my industry. Everybody puts the home online.
Yes.
Everybody sticks a sign in the yard. Everybody markets on social media and does professional photography. That is the minimum standard for hiring an agent. The reason why people are going to hire you is because they're not hiring your marketing. They're not hiring your brand. They're hiring you because they trust you. And if they understand you personally as a salesperson, then they're going to hire you. They're going to hire you. So I had my agents create a why script. And so tell me your why script, right? Yeah. And it's going to be unique to you, but it's like, for me personally, it's like, and you can feed them the objection that you want to handle, by the way. So we could go, I know in sales, we could go all the way down the weeds there, but if I feed them that objection, oftentimes I'll say, hey, Chris, I always like to end with this and say, is there anything that you haven't asked me that you think you should have asked me? And then they'll often say yes or no, or they say no. It's like, well, I think there's something that you've asked me that you haven't asked me that I think you should, and that's why you should hire me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Is that something you'd like me to answer? And so I just feed them it, and that tees it up for me to say, you should hire me because above all else, I didn't get into real estate to make a lot of money. I didn't get into real estate to sell houses. I got into real estate because I'm passionate about helping others actually achieve their goals personally and professionally. I'm a coach through this transaction, and family is home and home is family, and where you live is part of that. So I'm just here to protect your family the same way that I protect mine. It's not complicated. It's personal. You don't even have to have it wrote word by word because it's coming from your core, right? But if you start with why in the sales business, man, that's effective.
Yeah, I found the same thing. And I will sometimes at the end of my sales call, if I'm in that space where you were at, where you think like, I think I missed something wasn't communicated here. I'm just like, okay, let's pause. Anything else? Tell me, what did I miss? What hasn't been answered? And if most times on the first pass, they say, oh no, we're good. And I'm sure you've had the same experience. Oh no, we're good. I'm saying, I feel like I didn't touch something here. And I'm just opening it up. Is there anything else I get, any other information? What information did I not get to? And when they start sharing that, it really does separate you from, it really puts you into the elite atmosphere of sales.
Yeah. And you have to differentiate, right?
Amen.
I don't care what you sell. I don't care whether it's a service, whether it's a product. If you don't differentiate, then you're gone. I mean, we learned that really well during COVID, right? During the lockdown and those years, because you were either a market maker and a trendsetter in the space that you're in, or you were irrelevant.
So true. And I would tell you that I worked harder during the pandemic as a salesperson than I had worked in years. I mean, those were long days, long hours. At that point, my home office was in the basement, so it was dark. So I wasn't getting a lot of sunlight.
You were in the cave.
Amen. And but I'll tell you that because what we were all craving, because we couldn't go out and have personal connection, was personal connection. My phone bill went through the roof, and thank goodness, now I'm a talker by nature, so that happens, kind of organically. But it even accelerated from my normal cadence, and it was all of those major world events. And for you and I, Brian, we've been through a few of them. We learned some really good skills that we translate to the people who haven't gone through those. And when times are big and scary, we can help them say, yeah, these big scary things happen on a pretty regular basis, actually. And that's where I really found a little spark for coaching.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity. Resilience comes from being given the opportunity to work through difficult problems. So those big, scary events, whether it's personal or worldwide, you got to look at it and then see, okay, what can I learn? Yes, there's always bad in those situations, but what's the good? You know what I mean? How can I take this and actually shift this to work in my favor, where I either learn something about myself, about the market, about the business. So yeah. Hey, and Chris, look, I know that we could talk all day long.
Amen.
I absolutely know we could. We should probably have 3 episodes and list it as a series. But as you mentioned, I know a lot of people are driving when they're listening to this, and it's their commute. So I want to be thoughtful of our professionals' time. So I want to leave it with this. What's the one piece of advice that you have for our listeners, our other business owners and other coaches out there, that they could implement into their business today to actually unlock growth potential for them or the customers they serve?
Stop thinking about the big end result and start thinking about the small action you can get to that big end result.
Love it.
Right.
Love it. Incremental action.
Love action. It all happens slow. And I especially see this with entrepreneurs and small business owners. We have big goals, and we're taught to do big goals. The challenge, they all like, how do I do that? Or how do I hire this person? Take a small action, send one email, make one phone call, right? That's how you get to that big goal.
Love it. Well said. I'm not going to do anything, add anything to that, Chris. I think it was perfect.
I appreciate it.
I really appreciate the conversation again. Okay. We're going to make sure that you guys know how to get a hold of Chris. We're going to make sure that you know how to connect with him on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook. Check out his business page. So make sure you guys look at the show notes. And if you really enjoyed this episode of Unlocking Growth, make sure you do all the podcast stuff for me, right? Like it, send me a message, rate it, give us a review, all that stuff. And we are, as a lot of you guys already know, we are a proud member of the Small Business Delivered Podcast Network. So everything is business related. If you want to change your diet and exercise, and in particular your mental diet, make sure you guys are jumping into a couple of our shows, listening to other business owners across multiple different industries. And you can check us out right there at smallbusinessdelivered.com. So again, I'm Brian Stone. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Unlocking Growth. Until next time, see you guys later.